Hi, welcome back. How you been? Okay, time for the mudguard. Now I want to make this rear mudguard for the bike. I want to get stuck into that. It's essential to stop the back of the bike getting sandblasted. On the way to Brightona and back, I had a rucksack, a backpack on, and it got so heavily sprayed for 240 plus miles that it just ended up with 3 inches of water in the bottom, which was cool. And obviously I can't have that because I'm going to use this bike for work, and the bag I carry on my back to work, obviously I can't afford for that to get wet. So rather than messing about, and obviously the electrics underneath are completely sealed, all underneath there, none of it got wet in all that mileage, so that's not a problem. The bike is actually weatherproof, it's me getting sandblasted. And obviously this tyre here, it's just too far out the back to put a hugger on. What I mean by that is that huggers are designed to bolt to the swing arm to a specific space on a specific swing arm, and that wheel is 8 inches further back than normal. So if you put a hugger on it, where the hugger comes round on itself with a peak, the tyre would normally be underneath, but the tyre's further back. So effectively, a hugger's not going to work either. I'm going to make something. Now what I've got in mind is the kind of German adventure bike type thing you see, you know, like a little mudguardette thing just down the back. Same as you see on the Ducati Diavel, which is really cool. They put a number plate on theirs. I'm not going to do that. Mine's already side mounted, but just a little mudguardette. It's a little thing just down the back, and that will hopefully catch the spray and stop it going up in the air. And then once it's up in the air, the vacuum that your body creates going through the atmosphere sucks that water onto you, so you're getting saturated from behind as you're riding along. It just can't be, especially with the Polar Bear Challenge coming up, which is going to be fantastic in a month or so. So there we are. Today the project is to actually make the mudguard bit first before I make a method in which to connect it to the bike, which can come later once I know what it looks like. I've just got to actually make a mudguard, and I've got some ideas. Stick around, stay tuned, I'll show you what I'm thinking of. Right, so what I'm thinking of with the wheel here, obviously the top of the wheel isn't even covered. You've still got another 4 inches for the back of the bike, so that's got to, there's no way that any hugger's going to do anything here. Even if a hugger did come, it's going to come to about there. You normally then rely on the tailpiece being here, which prevents it going over the back of you. So even a normal hugger, which would come to about this position, I'm still going to get plenty of it. So what I'm going to do is put something about here. Now, my thinking is, when your water gets picked up by the tyre, as the tyre spins round, the water gets, literally it adheres to the rubber, and it gets picked up by the tyre. By the time it gets to this point, this level point, and the tyre starts to rotate back away from the direction of travel, the water then parts company. That's the thinking in these mudguards. That's the science behind them. That's the physics of it. As soon as the water gets to here, it parts company with the tyre, and that's it. Obviously though, you're moving that direction rapidly, so therefore as that parts company, it gets dragged back in. And this here is the area you've got to stop it getting off the tyre. That's where you've got to catch it and then drain it back down out of the way. Also, the great thing is I then get to stop the mudguard hopefully about here, sort of 10, 11 o'clock position, and then leave all the top exposed to look at. And hopefully by the time the tyre gets to here, it becomes exposed again to atmosphere. The water should have been thrown off into the mudguard. I'm hoping. If not, I can always extend it. I don't really want to mudguard the whole thing in because that just looks ridiculous. It just hides it. I want to show off my knobbly tyre. So I'm going to do something from about here to here, and the first task is fabricating the actual mudguard itself, the actual thing that's going to go on, before any thoughts of making a method of attaching it to the bike. I've got 4 really handy lugs on the swing arm, which are welded to the swing arm as part of it, 6mm holes in, and threads, so they're really handy and they're going to be utilised. Use what you have and all that. So they're there waiting. All I need to do is get the mudguard made, and then I can connect that to that to that, job done. So first part of the project is make this up, and I've got a cunning idea. Show me. Right, now, just to horrify and amaze your ass, watch this. Ready?
Now the idea of this, and I know that you're already horrified, but what I'm doing is I'm actually going to use the tyre as a mould. And yes, I've tested a small area, and yes, it peels off afterwards. It would appear that apparently either something to do with the formulation of the tyre rubber or the polythene and the two materials, it seems that the glue doesn't glue them together permanently. Now I glued an area just onto the outside of the block, which will wear away obviously in the future, and it turns out that it just peels off. It's kind of stuck a bit as it's sticking now, but it peels off real easy, and that's very handy because I can now use the tyre as a mould. Or do I mean as a plug? I can use the tyre as a plug from which I can make a mould, and then from the mould I can make the mudguard. Now this, in the test that I did, obviously you don't just go doing these kind of things unless you're a bit gung-ho and you don't need the tyre or it's an old one, but this is a perfectly serviceable, virtually new tyre, and I didn't want to mess it up, so I tested a small area. I did it last night. Just like I said, on the outside of the block, on two of them, I just glued this bin liner on and let it dry overnight, and it did a good job. It just stuck okay like this, giving me the shape and the contours that I need, but at the same time, like this, it can be pulled off and removed without ripping into bits. And even if the worst comes to it and it sticks permanently, it doesn't matter because it's only polythene. It's going to wear off the blocks, and this in between it will just work its way off in the end anyway with the weather. So it's not the end of the world, and it's not doing any harm. I'm going to get all this stuck down, try and do a half decent job of making the plug usable. And I can hopefully lay up some matting and create a decent mould for this. Just going to stick it and stretch it down between each little block. Right, you've all seen this before, same old, same as the tailpiece itself. Now if I was going to do this properly, I think in retrospect, actually in hindsight should I say, thinking about this, I'm not going to bother making a mould purely because it's a rat bite, and if I was going to make a proper mould it would have to be free of all these wrinkles, and that's pretty important, so it was half decent. And the other side of it is, I haven't got any mould release wax and all that old stuff, and that's expensive. So rather than spending money buying that stuff, I'm just going to make this the final part. Literally use this as a one-off. Use this plug here, use the tyre itself as the means of connection. Right, and that will just, from there I'll just dob it on and make a very thin coat. I'm not going to put loads and loads of fiberglass on this to start with. I'm just going to do one piece, one layer all over, albeit it will be quite resined, as it were. Just going to saturate it all and get it to be pliable, push it in. I think once one layer is dry, I'm going to take it off the bike. I'm not going to lay too much on over the tyre, and then I'll do the rest on the bench. So today is just about getting the initial coating, or the initial thickness of fiberglass on the job. And this is my last paintbrush anyway, so I've got to get some more, or get some acetone, whichever, so I can clean them. But they're only 20p each, so it's not an issue. Good. go. Soak it down. Dob it in, mate. You dob me in. Right, Costa coffee sticks. I did be it to try and get some contour sharpness to it. Without sticking to it like the brush does. That's better. Get a nice sharp edge. There's quite a lot of resin in it now, so it's going to set it well, but it's causing the stuff to just squidge about. Should get enough time on the drying. Come on, lay down, you bastard. Come on. That's better. All I'll do, I've got quite a lot of distance done, way more than I need, so I just cut out the best bit, I think, and use that for the drop. Just trying to create as sharp a effect on the tyre blocks as I can. I'll probably cut it to about that width, because any water is going to come to the centre of the tyre before it flings off, rather than it being right over the edge. It doesn't need to be any wider than sort of here. So these flaggedy edges don't matter, they're not important, they'll get trimmed away once it's all dried up. And while I've got time, and this is drying off, slowly curing, I can just keep moving it around, just gently with the sticks, just to keep that shape nice and solid. And then when it's done, I'll pop another layer. I don't think I'm going to put any more matting over that, because it's more than enough, and the lighter it is the better. Obviously it's going to sit on a remote bracket right back here, and if it's too heavy it'll waggle about too much, so better that it's not too heavy. Right, that'll do for now. Just had to repair a little bit there, because big air bubble that it just came out, tore it off. It's quite fragile now. Got all of the creases as good as I can get them. Got the definition on the blocks about as good as it's going to get. So let's let that dry, and then I've got to stick another coat of resin over the top just to finish it. Okay, right, I ran out of paintbrushes just to get the final coat on, and I had one, but now I've got three, with the aid of some tape and a hacksaw. Use what you have. It's a knackered old paintbrush, and it had white paint in it anyway, and I don't paint white paint anywhere, that was for the walls. And it was a knackered brush, so there you go. Handy Delboy's garage tip. Saw your brushes up and make them last longer. Right, okay. This is just a final coat of resin on the job. This has got a child-proof lid, which is why I'm having problems getting it off.
Because you had a fish finger sandwich.
I did. Very nice. See, I'm gonna be a bit generous with that. Now, the tip this way, it's a bit damp today because we've got this wretched storm coming. Apparently, it's supposed to have been on the way for 3 days, but it's not here yet. Anyway, it's very damp at the minute, and as such, that's causing this not to want to go off very easily. So, it's taken about 2 hours for that last lot to go off, and it's 6 centimeters of hardener.
that's 6 centimetres of hardener, but I'm going to put
Oh,
just, it's a shovel just fell out. Just going to put an extra centimetre of hardener in it, just to give it an extra little bit of action. With this business of hardener, you can put in half the hardener that's recommended and it will still go off. You will still set off the chemical reaction that causes the resin to go hard. It will just take much longer, and I don't need it to go off quick. It's a Sunday, got the day off, no need to worry. In fact, that in the end you get to know the colour it should be, and that's still a little bit yellow, so I have to put just a little bit more, about another 2 centimetres in. There we go. No, don't. Now I know you can, that there's prescribed amounts and so on that you should put in, but honestly I want this to get solid by the end of the day so I can lift it off the mould and get her done, as they say. Right, that's that. Take one of my Delboy's Garage fabricated brushes.
don't do that with my toothbrush, will you?
Right, and it's just a case of dob-a-dob-dob. It's all solid now. I just want to put a couple of layers of resin over it just to strengthen it up. As I said earlier, I did want to make a mould. It would have been really cool to make a mould and then mould the thing exact, but to be honest, you check it out, mould release wax and all that sort of stuff, and with the mould then you have to put wood, plywood into it to hold it in shape so that it doesn't go all soggy when you start pushing it around and sticking fiberglass inside it. And it wouldn't be very wrapped, would it, if it was nice, if it was too good. There we go. It's all nice and firm now. It took a long time with the little coffee cup sticks, just pushing down the little creases and identifying the blocks, just highlighting them so that they stand out completely and they're not kind of bridged across. But it's done, it's worth the effort, and I think a couple of good coats of this will just give it a nice finish, and I can paint it matte black afterwards. It'll be nice and smooth. I don't want too much of a fiberglass finish. Right, I'm just laying it so thick. I'm not going to do another coat, that's it now. And that will be, what I'm going to do is I'm going to lay it up a bit thicker, but on the inside. I'm not going to put any more on the outside. The reason is, like I said, it will disguise the crispness of the pattern and remove some of that, which I don't want to do. So all I'm going to do with it is exploit that as best I can, and as that will set hard, it's going in the bin. And there we are. Plug it in again.
Wobbly there.
There we are. It's a bit knobbly, yeah, knobbly and wobbly, but that will set, and as I've said a few times, it comes off. This bin liner just lifts off. I'm just going to roll it up and gradually lift that off, and that will come clean off the tyre, leaving no residue at all. I've already tested that. So if you want to do this to your tyre, if you've got nobblers, you can indeed. It's quite safe. Test it if you're not sure. There we go. That's the mudguard itself made. Okay, all I'm going to do now is leave that. I can't do any more today. I just want to get in and splice all this lot up, get it ready to upload, and that will take 24-48 hours before it's movable. Take it off, trim it round so that it's the correct shape. It's going to be an oval shape, and I'll leave it virtually the full length because it kind of works like that. I like it. And then once it's trimmed, I think what I'm going to do is work on devise an idea once I've laid just one layer of fiberglass on the inside, literally for no other reason, to fill up the knobble holes as much as possible and give it a composite sort of sandwich feel, so it's quite strong in its own right. What I'm trying to get is a monocoque thing using as little metal and as much lightweight fiberglass as I can, because hanging right out the back here it's going to waggle about, and I want to just probably do a couple of little spars either side using the wire. I've got a little piece of wire rod left, I reckon 2 of those one side, I've got some there, a couple the other side, weld in some washers, and I should get
bolt it into place. There we go. Thanks for tuning in and watching Delboy's Garage. Mudguard now fabricated. Now I've got it, I can move forward and start looking at how I'm going to mount it on the bike, and we're almost ready to go. Winter's coming. Take it to road safe. See you next time.